any rate, we've been talking this morning about rail service in Peoria going back a number of years, some wonderful, wonderful memories. And it was injected in last night's mayoral, I wouldn't call it a debate, a discussion. And I thought, it would be interesting to get the scoop about rail service in Peoria and in the past and maybe in the future, who knows. But if anyone knows, it's the former Secretary of Transportation under President Obama, our own Ray LaHood. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Ray.
Hey, Ray.
Do you remember the
great
days of rail service in Peoria when the Rocket went to Chicago and back twice in a day?
I remember it very well, certainly as a kid in Peoria growing up, getting on the train, and not that often, but from time to time we would do that, and it wasn't the fastest train, but it was a lot of fun to ride on a train back in the day.
Yeah. Do you think that day is ever going to come back to Peoria? Is it feasible? Is it affordable? Or is it just going to be a wonderful memory?
One of the things that I know about is that when Obama was elected and I was appointed Secretary of Transportation, Congress passed a bill which allocated $8 billion for high-speed rail. And that money was to be used to develop rail projects around the country. And Jim Ardis, then the mayor of Peoria, contacted me, and we talked, and there was a study done. And the problem is that in order to develop rail, it's very, very expensive. You have to have good infrastructure. That means that the tracks have to be in good condition. And then you have to have very good equipment. And if you look at the Northeast Corridor, which runs from Washington, D.C. to Boston, stops in Philly, stops in Wilmington, Delaware, stops in New York, and then on to Boston. It is the most traveled route in the country, and it's financed 40% by the federal government. The other 60% comes from fare box. The point I'm trying to make is, in order for rail to be developed in Peoria, it would be very, very costly, and the federal government simply doesn't have the money. When people go to Europe and ride the trains and come back and want to know how come we don't have good trains in the U.S., it's because our national government has never made that kind of commitment. If Eisenhower had signed the high-speed rail bill instead of the interstate bill, our country would be connected by rail, but we're not. We made our investments in our roadways. And so the truth is that we're never going to see rail in Peoria again because the money is not available at the federal level, and there simply is not enough money through local governments. The one rail line that works pretty well runs from Chicago to St. Louis, and it stops in Joliet, and it stops along the way, in other communities, but Normal really benefits from that, and while I was secretary, I was able to get them some money to fix up that rail line and get them some money for a new Amtrak station. But that rail line delivers kids from Chicago to ISU, to University of Illinois, all the way down to Southern Illinois and into St. Louis. It's a very popular line, but it costs an enormous amount of money. And Governor Quinn back then was willing to put some state money in, and we put some federal money in, and it's a good rail line. And so I think it's I don't know if it's a waste of time, but these mayoral candidates ought to be focusing on how to get businesses to come to Peoria, how to create jobs, how to take care of the small businesses that are there, and really get our economy moving again, and take care of the roads that we have.
One of the challenges that you had mentioned in our conversation yesterday, Ray, was you weren't sure that there would be enough traffic, enough people interested in taking the train to Chicago to make it cost effective.
One of the things about taking the train is that, is it an efficient use of your time? If you're going to Chicago to do some shopping or whatever, that's one thing. But if you're going on a business trip and it takes 4 hours to get there, that isn't a very efficient use of your time. And so even the Northeast Corridor, if you get on a train in D.C. and want to go to New York for a business trip or a meeting or something, you're there in 3 hours. And you have the internet connection and so forth. And so that's why a lot of people use that. I don't think the ridership is in Peoria. I really don't. I don't think people would use it and want to pay for it. And certainly you can't really justify it for what it would cost to build the rail lines, to provide the Amtrak service, and I just think it's real cost prohibitive, and I don't see it happening.
Well, Ray, Mike Dantino here. Just one thing I wanted to suggest is, years ago I lived in Chicago and used to ride the trains in from Lake Forest to go to law school. And one of the things, I am a huge advocate of trains. I love them to death. And, the ride in from Lake Forest to downtown Chicago for me was kind of it was useless time insofar as you couldn't do a lot of work. And, with me, if I'm on a train, the noise and the rocking pretty much is a lullaby for me, and I get a nice, half an hour, 45 minutes sleep. But I think now we're looking at a situation where the paradigm shifted a little bit, perhaps, and it may be worth taking a look at rail service again, because companies now, with this last year that we've been involved in with the restrictions on going to work and all that, more and more people are going to be untethered from an office. There's much better access to communications with Wi-Fi and cellular phone service. So being on a train might not be as unproductive as it was as recently as 10 years ago. You can conduct business, you can conduct phone calls. I don't know that there'd be a huge influx of people moving to Peoria and then commuting 2 or 3 days a week to Chicago, but, that's an option. And I think it may be worth another look as far as doing another study to see if that would be attractive to people to do, a long 2.5, 3 hour commute now that you're, able to communicate during that whole time you're on the train. Of course, again, you're right. It's going to take a huge investment in both rail infrastructure and then probably communications, stuff, as far as cell towers and repeaters and whatnot to be able to have uninterrupted service between Peoria and Chicago. But it'd be, it may just be me being nostalgic, but it would be a neat option if that were to be back on the table again.
Well, look at it. It's a very aspirational thing. It would be nice to have train service to complement, but there's no money at the federal level to support that. And to be honest, Republicans never wanted to support it. Obama came up with $8 billion. And, immediately, because it was Obama's idea to do more high-speed rail around the country,
then there's opposition
we had Republican
to it, right?
Governors turning the money down. And we were willing to give $2.3 billion to then the new governor of Florida, Rick Scott, and he'd just been elected governor, and all the plans were in place, all the permits, everything was done from Orlando to Tampa, and he turned down $2.3 billion. And the people in that part of Florida were absolutely flabbergasted that he would do that. So we went to California, where Governor Brown wanted high-speed rail, and now they're building a high-speed rail line between San Francisco and L.A. Now, there's some private projects going on. There's a project between Dallas and Houston, which is the fourth and 6 largest cities in America, all privately funded. There's a privately funded project from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. There's a privately funded project from Miami to Orlando. And there's no federal money involved because Republicans, frankly, didn't want to fund any of it. And that hasn't changed. It just simply has not changed at all. And so it's a pipe dream, in my opinion, to think that we're going to have rail service between Peoria and Chicago.
Well, I think you're probably right. It seems the big difference between, highway funding and railway funding is that the government funds the roads, but, the railroads themselves fund the right-of-ways and the rails that the trains travel on. And if that were different, it'd be, the equation would be substantially changed. But you're right. The federal government isn't as elbow deep in railways as they are on the roadways.
Well, the other thing that you make a good point. I mean, America does have the best freight rail system, but it's all privately funded. These
Right.
freight rails, they deliver a lot of goods all over the country, and they make money at it. So you have 4 Class 1 freight rail systems around the country, and if you want to implement high-speed rail on existing rail lines, you have to negotiate agreements with the freight rail, and they're not that amenable to doing that. We ran into a lot of problems with freight rail, and anyway, it's freight rail is very strong in America, but passenger rail less so.
Well, I tell you what, Ray, if you will, I'll throw in $10 to help fund the Peoria rocket to Chicago at least one day a week.
Yeah, good. Well, that won't get in.
You notice Ray didn't say he was going to throw in $10 either for that.
No, I'd rather invest in some economic development opportunities to try and encourage businesses to locate in Peoria, and we got a great workforce in Peoria. We really do, and that's what we ought to be putting billboards up all over the country. Come to Peoria. It's a great place to work, and we got a great workforce. And I know it takes more than that, but to me, that ought to be the focus of what these mayoral candidates are talking about. We need jobs. We need to get our economy moving again, and we can't just rely on the healthcare part of our community to bring our economy back. We just simply can't. And we can't rely on Caterpillar either. But you look at companies like Maui Jim, who located their distribution center right in the middle of the country, and they've done very well. And the people that work there, they love working there. And I know that COVID has hurt a lot of businesses, and that's why Congress is passing another bill. But for the long term, Peoria really needs to focus on how do we get businesses to come to Peoria and take advantage of a very strong workforce.
Yeah, and
how's that for a mayoral platform?
There you go.
You know what? We are circulating as you speak a petition for Ray LaHood to run for mayor.
Yeah,
on a write-in campaign April 6th. So
I was going to say, Ray, it sounds like you're throwing your hat in a ring there.
Yeah, that's right. Let's make sure we know how to spell. Is that a capital H on Hood, or is that lowercase?
Hey, please don't mention that to Kathy LaHood. She'll be on your program tomorrow morning.
Ray, let me ask you this, Jim Bixby. When they were initiating the study for high-speed rail from Chicago to St. Louis, was there ever a serious gander at running it through Peoria?
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's what the study was about, absolutely. Running it from the Quad Cities to Galesburg, which has great, they have great freight rail service.
Oh, they do.
Great,
yeah.
That's the railroad capital of the world. They actually have a railroad museum in.
Oh, I know that. So, but I was wondering if they were seriously investigating the possibilities of running high-speed rail from Chicago through Peoria to St. Louis.
I think that was a part of it. We'd have to dust the study off, Jim, and
But
but
ISU's a deal breaker as far as participation.
Pardon me?
As far as
Well,
participation,
no, of course,
as far as
no, Jim,
participation
you're right,
in that.
of course. Yeah, of course, Normal doesn't want Peoria to have rail service. They want people to get in their car and drive over there and park at the Amtrak station
Right.
and take the train to Chicago or St. Louis. I certainly understand that, and they weren't for it at all.
Yeah, it just didn't work out because the Iowa Interstate has some pretty good roadbed down on the old Rock Island line. It stops right there, as you probably know, at Waterworks Park. And then they pick it up and bring it on through with the PNPU. And it's a coal hauler, Chicago, Illinois Midland comes in, and they classify all that freight over there in East Peoria and move it on out to different areas. But that freight does not require the same sophisticated roadbed, although it's good. It's not the same as high-speed railroad bed.
And I also think that the Quad City area now has a rail line from the Quad Cities, Rock Island, Moline, East Moline, Davenport, that goes to Chicago and then crosses the Mississippi River and over into Iowa and then beyond there. And, they worked very hard on that. And while I was at DOT, we funded some of that, too. You have to have the commitment from the state. Pat Quinn, when he was governor, really committed to that rail line between Chicago and St. Louis, and we added millions of dollars to help him. But he put up some state money, too.
Well,
Ray,
I believe it.
Personal question. You are traveling, and I assume by air. Have you received both of the vaccine shots?
Kathy and I both had the COVID virus. We got it on November 3rd. We had very mild symptoms. We quarantined for 10 days, and then we've been in Florida. We're coming back to Peoria today from Florida, and we've been in touch with OSF. They've notified us that we qualify for the vaccine, and so we hope to get it while we're back. They said to call the day before, and they'll arrange for us to get it.
Yeah. Are you coming back by train or by air?
Well, we're not coming by car. We're coming by air. Allegiant has some great direct flights to St. Petersburg, to Punta Gorda, and they just announced a direct flight from Peoria to Sarasota starting in late May, which will be very, very helpful to us because we rent a place in the Sarasota area.
Yeah, along with a lot of other people from Peoria, I understand.
Yeah, and Allegiant is a very, very good airline. They go point to point. They're kind of like Southwest. Their fares are very reasonable. They don't fly every day down to Florida, but pretty much every other day. And we're blessed that we have Allegiant serving Peoria. You can go to Arizona, you can go to Las Vegas, and many places in Florida. And I think the one transportation. We have good roads in Peoria, but we also have very good air service.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't get a discount on your Allegiant ticket after that commercial, Ray, I will speak to the president of the airline company. Ray, good talking to you.
He just tells the truth.
Have a safe trip back, my friend.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Ray LaHood, former Secretary of Transportation and former member of Congress.